A deadlocked Supreme Court blocked President Obama's immigration plan to shield millions of illegal immigrants from deportation and give them the right to work here legally in the United States. A big blow to the president, and he's not happy.
I think it is heartbreaking for the millions of immigrants who made their lives here. We're going to have to make a decision about whether we are a people who tolerate the hypocrisy of the system, where the workers who pick our fruit or make our beds never have the chance to get right with the law, or whether we're going to give them a chance, just like our forebears had a chance, to take responsibility and give their kids a better future. Sooner or later, immigration reform will get done. Congress is not going to be able to ignore America forever. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
And of course, once again, it's all the Republicans' fault.
This is part of the consequence of the Republican failure so far to give a fair hearing to Mr. Merrick Garland, my nominee to the Supreme Court. They are allowing partisan politics to jeopardize something as fundamental as the impartiality and integrity of our justice system. And America should not let it stand.
Or it's the way the process works. I mean, it was a 4-4 tie, and it goes down to the Fifth Circuit. Is that what it was?
Yes. Well, this is American jurisprudence at work. This is how the system goes. Okay, the charge is that he exceeded his authority by engaging in executive action, and this was, of course, to combat the idea by a lot of immigration activists that have not been happy with President Obama, because so far 2.5 million immigrants have been deported under his watch. Some have called him the deporter-in-chief. So this was a strike back at that, to say let's find a way to have citizenship essentially eventually by allowing these people to be in this country. But it did not go over well, and given the complexities of the court right now with the passing of Antonin and Scalia, this was pretty much a done deal, that it was going to be a 4-4 split. It is nevertheless a big blow to the president, but I think it's the right thing, no matter who would be in the Oval Office, to engage in that kind of executive action, circumvent the legislature. That is not what the Founding Fathers intended. So this is the right move.
And Dana, and a lot of people say, this whole political process going on right now, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, you don't like Donald Trump, so you wouldn't vote for him. Republicans need to think about this. If there's going to be one Supreme Court justice appointed, 2 or 3, you could have a very liberal-leaning court, and this is in action. Guns and immigration are 2 of the things that could be decided.
Well, and I think that a lot of conservatives who would be inclined not to vote for Trump would say, well, we should have thought about that during the primary process because we figured this was going to happen in the general election. However, it is very motivating for Republicans, but also for Democrats, because they understand the stakes of the game just as well. Think about President Obama being so unhappy. He really should have not voted for that poison pill in 2007. He wanted a political issue to run on. He got a political issue to run on. A lot of people, there's a school of thought that says he shouldn't have pushed Obamacare first, that what he should have done is immigration first. In fact, there's a former president who advised him of that. Do your immigration first and then try to do Obamacare, but that's not the decision that the president made. And then what happens is, this is not the first time that the president has been rebuffed on executive orders. You could go to the EEOC, which is the Employee Commission, thank you, on energy. In fact, just yesterday, he could actually find himself in another position with this, but the fracking rule that the president put forward that was rebuffed by a circuit court judge or a district judge in Wyoming yesterday. So a lot of times in administration, if you get 2 terms, the first term you spend trying to get through a lot of legislation. In the second term, you try to solidify it by defending it in court. And the president has a pretty bad track record, which is why he's mad that Garland isn't sitting there.
Is that what it was? He's mad. That anger, that distaste on his face, the way he presented it, is it because Merrick Garland isn't the 9th Supreme Court justice, or is he just playing a little theater here?
You know what it is? It's this tone of casual superiority, like, I'm the adult here, you're the kids. It's the kind of thing you pull off when you get turned down on a prom date. It's like, oh, your loss. That's everything when he talks to the adversaries when he loses. It's like, it's your loss, and you will see when I emerge victorious. And he always casts himself as a thoughtful sage that bears no responsibility to the consequences.
Or the Constitution.
Or the Constitution. Or the process. He overstepped it. He overstepped. And I mean, what if we decided to sit in the White House to protest? Apparently, that's the way to go. He has the responsibility to persuade us on these issues, but it's very hard to take him seriously when for the last 8 years, identity has trumped security. We are all for hard workers. I love hard workers. I want all hard workers to come here, but I also want process. And if you think that safety is being compromised in the process, then you become suspicious of the president because you don't feel that he is addressing those other things.
Yeah.
Therefore, we go, enough, stop, and then he goes, that's so uncool.
Juan, how was the process?
Well
Did it
said.
work today?
No, because obviously you have in fact, the process is that the president should nominate and the Senate should advise on his nominee, but you don't have a vote. They refuse to abide by the process.
It's unprecedented to have that vote in an
immigration.
election year. And
I don't
Senator
care. I
McConnell
don't
has
care
been
if it's an
very
election
stalwart.
year or not. That's what the Constitution says. He was elected president, and that's the American people. They elected him twice. But I would say the process
in
didn't
lieu
work
of
in
the
terms of.
In lieu of the ninth judge, did the process work today?
Well, it's 4-4, so I guess it's stalled. I mean, obviously the government's not working. I mean,
No, it
it's
is.
really sad that
All
the
right,
government's not
I
working.
don't get this,
did
but
the
they just
process-
issued a decision, and it's basically
They issued a non-decision.
Well,
They said
the-
they allowed the lower court ruling to
They
stand.
made a ruling, correct, and the Fifth
Which is
Circuit
the
ruling
process.
is going to stand. That's how the judicial process works. There was no circumvention of justice here. There wasn't anybody not following the rules. They did what they were
Well,
supposed
let me just
to
say,
do.
they didn't even really rule on the key issue here, which is did the president overstep his authority? What they said basically was this is a procedural thing. It wasn't done properly in terms of getting the court.
Well, I have a
but you had
solution.
four liberals, right,
Right.
who said, you know what, this was done properly. It's okay. You had 4 conservatives who said it's not. So what you have is Washington.
in the-
What do you
polarized,
do?
process,
What do?
it
You
goes
break the
into-
tie. You know, you break the tie, a direct kick. You get the 4, you get
Penalty
the
kicks?
yeah, you get
Overtime.
the 8 Supreme Court justices in front of a net, and Obama has to kick the ball past them.
There you go.
How's that?
So-
I
It's-
solved
it's-
it.
That's what we have.
Can I
If
ask
it
you
was a
one
golf
thing?
ball,
If-
he'd be the winner
If you
for
have a
sure.
problem
Let me
with
tell
the
you.
process, the way it works, and this is the way it happens when
Yeah.
you have it tied to Supreme Court.
Well,
it-
yeah, you
it
should
just
have
goes
a-
back to the lower court.
Right.
The process, therefore, did or did not work in the affirmative action case today.
In the affirmative action case, they had a clear ruling.
Right.
Yeah.
So the
Well, that's
process
'cause he
worked.
likes
They had a
the rules.
majority.
Process worked on one.
No, but
when we
but
win,
Eric,
but when we lose, the
Eric,
process doesn't
that's
work.
not true. Come on, Eric. They had a majority in one, and here you had a 4-4 tie because the Senate refuses to act on Garland's nomination. I would say the people who get hurt here are the 4 million people who are in our midst. They're not a security
No, you know what
threat.
Obama was saying? He was saying, you know who's really getting hurt? The people who have their beds made and the people who have their food delivered. Because that's what he was talking about. He was saying, these are the people that make your beds. These are the people that deliver your food. He said that this is a cyclical thing. We see the fear-mongering and the spasms of anger, but it always happens after you let in millions of people. Then you create the anger, and then you hope that the anger leads to a solution, which is amnesty. That's what he's
All right,
referring
let me just
to.
say, though, remember that when President Bush tried to have immigration reform, guess what? It was the Republican base that blocked that. When you have the Senate in 2014 pass immigration reform, again, it's the House and a Republican majority in the House that blocked that. So when you said, Eric, I think, oh, President Obama just blames the Republicans. Don't you think, well, in fact, yeah, Republicans don't want immigration
But
reform.
that's the process. Elections have consequences, do they not?
Isn't that immigration reform? Trying to follow the law?
Wait, the Senate passed it.
No, what I'm saying is, a definition of immigration reform may not be declaring amnesty, is what I'm saying.
What I was going to add, in terms of the tie on this particular case, it does show how political immigration is, because in those other court cases that I mentioned, when the Supreme Court ruled against the administration on executive actions and said, no, you cannot do that, you overstep, those were usually 9-0 decisions, maybe like 8-1, 7-2. They were really very decisive. This being a tie, I think, shows how political this issue is. So,
You know what she's saying?
in
The
the
liberals
next
should decide or not.
18 weeks before the general election, you're going to hear a lot more of this.
Yeah, she's right.
Final?
Yeah, no, she's absolutely right, because if you look at the consistency across the court and their rulings, this should have been unanimous decision with the court saying executive action overstepping the bounds, you know, the separation of powers. So there you go.
Remember, elections have consequences. Supreme Court consequences for a long time, lifetime appointments.